Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. Today, we're discussing a topic that really needs light shed on it. I may even lose a couple listeners based on my views about this topic. But I'm Kai, I'm real, and I won't shy away about important cases or topics. It's the case of Alexander Skeel, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of heartbreak that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're discussing a case of horrendous abuse and the horrid outcome of it. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. And if you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so you don't have to hear intros such as this one, commercials, and you'll get Kai Rants, bonuses, and you'll be a sponsor and supporter of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your BJ's brand apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's, and let's get into some Love and Murder. Alexander Gerald Skeel was born on August 17th, 1995, and he lived in Stewartby, UK. I think that's how you say it, Stewartby, Stewartby, I think, which is south of Bedford. From a young age, Alex and his twin brother were featured models for an Asda grocery chain. In 2012, at the age of 16, Alex met Jordan Worth during their college years. They actually ended up meeting at a college concert in June of that year. Jordan was a gymnast who went to the University of Hertfordshire and aspired to be a teacher, and it was said that she came from a, quote, loving and supportive family background. Quote, she was very caring, confident, loving. She just showed a real interest in me. Even though the relationship started out great, things took a dark turn. At first, Alex tried to end the relationship, but kind of reconsidered when Jordan said that she was pregnant. In May of 2014, when he was 18, baby Thomas J., TJ as he's known, was born, and Alex and Jordan got back together. Alex's best friend is reported as saying, Jordan just got back into his head to the point where you couldn't do or say anything to stop it. As time went by, Alex felt that he had to choose between his girlfriend and his family, and he ended up choosing his little family, which was his girlfriend and TJ, and they ended up moving into their own home in Stewartby, Bedfordshire in July 2016. In May of 2017, the couple welcomed another child, a little girl named Iris. And by this time, Alex hadn't spoken to his parents in 2 years. He didn't even call them to tell them that he had another child. However, shortly after Iris was born, Alex broke up with Jordan. Now, before you start looking at Alex all sideways and stuff, let's get into the home life that Alex had with Jordan. Between April 2016 and June 2017, Jordan abused Alex, and it only got worse over time. At first, their relationship started out good. Like I said earlier, it turned bad. Very bad. Quote, the longer they were together, and as the relationship grew, the mind games started playing. Jordan would say, I don't really like the color gray. I don't think you should wear the color gray. She'd say, I don't like your hair like that. You should have your hair like this. I don't like your shoes you're wearing. But I never took it as a negative. It was more like, I won't wear it again. It won't impress her. One time, Alex's family tried to take the couple out to London to go to a theater. However, after a while, they noticed that Jordan was nowhere in sight. She had just disappeared in the middle of the night. So they got worried about her. Where did she go? Did somebody pick her up? Did we leave her somewhere? Like, what in the world? And they frantically searched the hotel, around the hotel, everywhere. And an hour later, she was just sitting in the hotel lobby, quote, just laughing. Another time, when it was Alex's 18th birthday, they were having a party for him, and she just started screaming, quote, abuse at a female friend who she just for some reason, was now jealous of. So she just started screaming and ranting and raving and just causing a commotion at this party. However, Alex kept staying with her, even when his family and friends told him to leave her, even when they kept telling him that it's going to get worse, even when they were showing him the red flags, even when they draped him in a red towel and had red sunglasses over him and put on red shoes on him and painted his skin red. Even through all of those red flags, Alex decided to stay. Quote, I was a bit clouded by what happened because at the time I loved her. Over even more time, she became so controlling that she took away his wallet and made him quit the job that he was working at. Over more time, she became even more controlling to the point where she took away his wallet and forced him to quit his job. Instead of going to work, he would come with her to classes at the university, and she did this so she can keep a watchful eye on him. Not that he was doing anything. He wasn't cheating on her. He wasn't being a horrible boyfriend. She just wanted to control him to that extent. And instead of playing those mind games saying, oh, I don't like this color, I don't like what you're wearing, she would literally demand that he wear what she said to wear. She would continuously hit him and assault him, and she is the reason he hadn't talked to his family in 2 years. What she would do is she would actually pretend to be him. So she would send messages from his phone, just berating his family, talking down to his friends, and ultimately saying, I don't want to see y'all anymore. Once that was done, she then broke his phone so he couldn't even get in contact with them if he wanted to. And personally, I was wondering why he didn't just leave. But then I started thinking, oh, if she's doing this to him, what might she do to his children? So I'm wondering if he maybe thought that he was the buffer between her and the children. So he was just taking it for his children. And then I read that he was worried about leaving for 2 different reasons. Number one, just in case she harmed the children, he wouldn't be there. Nobody would be there to help the children. And number 2, thinking that he might lose custody of the children and she might get full custody. And then what? So Jordan took full advantage of this. She took over his social media accounts and didn't allow him to get in contact with anybody, any way, anyhow. She completely isolated him from the world. One time, just for shits and giggles, she told him that his grandfather, who he was really, really close with, had died. And when Alex just fell out crying, devastated, then she called him a punk, a bitch, get up, what you doing, what you crying, why you crying, you little, and laughed at him for crying. And it was a complete lie. His grandfather wasn't dead, by the way. She just did this because she thought it was funny. She'd also become physically abusive, where she would just randomly stab him or beat him with random things. Her favorite was beating him with a hairbrush. And, a couple times she beat him so hard with the hairbrush that his tooth came loose. One time she was attacking him with a bread knife and she severed the tendons in his right hand. And another time she attacked him with her favorite weapon, the hairbrush, and actually broke his tooth. As time went by, she ramped up her abuse, and one of her other favorite ways of punishing him was with a kettle full of boiling water. So she would constantly pour boiling water on him. Now, neighbors would frequently hear his screams and, would call 911, but the police would come and leave. And whenever he came outside and he had so many bruises on him, they would ask him, where are all these bruises from? Why are you always bruised up? And he would always say he did it to himself, or just make up an excuse. I fell down the stairs, or you know how clumsy I am. Now, some of us may know these same excuses that we get from people we know in these kind of relationships. So as you see, men as well as women give the same excuses. Now, one time when she was abusing him, this is just one out of many, she had cut his hand once again with a bread knife, and the police were called out because they heard him shouting, quote, "Leave me alone, stop hurting me." When officers arrived, they found Alex at the top of the stairs, just looking so frail and so frightened. Sergeant Ed Finn, who was one of the officers on the scene, said, quote, "Jordan let us in and we went upstairs. At the top of the stairs, Alex was sat with a towel wrapped around his arm and just blood everywhere. There was a large serrated kitchen knife. Then I noticed other injuries on Alex." When they asked Alex what happened, as he always does, he said it was, he did it to himself. And he just kept saying, I did it to myself. And they're like, with the bread knife, he was like, yeah, I'm really clumsy. I was trying to, cut some bread, and somehow I cut my wrist and my whole hand. And I don't know what else. I just cut myself over and over and over and got blood all over the house. It was all my fault. And when police questioned Jordan, she would blame it on him, saying, quote, he made it very clear he never wanted to see his family. He said he hated his family and he doesn't want to talk to his family. He wants nothing to do with his family. Yeah, he hurt himself. I guess he hurt himself because he feels lonely. He's not with his family. Well, that part, the lonely part and everything, I didn't say. The part about the family, that was all her. But me saying, he did it to himself and everything, that was me. But she did say he did it to himself. She would always blame it on him and say that he did this to himself. There's just no quote of her of exactly what she said. Let's take a commercial break to dive deeper into Love and Murder with the Lamb Supporters Club. Join us on patreon.com/Love and Murder, Spotify, or Spreaker, and easy access to the links of all of these platforms are in the show notes below. As a Lamb supporter, you get commercial-free episode and intro-free episodes so you don't have to hear commercials such as this one. Plus, you get bonuses like Kai Rant. And for instance, with this episode, I'm adding some extras just for the supporters club. So we're going to hear more about Alex, what his ordeal was like, and what he has to say about it. And for our Patreon family, you get even more extras, like videos from this episode, as well as pictures from the case. The reason you only get it on Patreon is because Spreaker and Spotify don't give me that option right now. Patreon.com/Love and Murder, or you could find all the links for the other platforms below. Come on over to the Supporters Club. We're saving a spot just for you. And speaking of saving a spot, I've told you so much about joining the BJ's Club. And I'm not going to stop spreading the word about BJ's. BJ's is the place to be when you want to save money on your shopping trips. Like I keep telling you, I joined BJ's 2 years ago and I have not left. What I have forgotten to tell you about is the way you can order with BJ's. My favorite way, since I'm usually busy with the podcast, is I order online. So I order my groceries online and literally all I have to do is drive to the store and they'll either bring out my groceries straight to my car or I just walk in, stand in a designated area, they give me my cart and I walk out with my groceries. They do all of the shopping for me. It literally only takes me maybe 5 minutes to do grocery shopping online, and I can still use my coupons. Another way that they can give you your groceries is they can deliver it directly to your house. You don't even have to leave the house. You literally just order online and choose deliver to my house. Simple. Easy. www.murderandlove.com/BJ's. Join with my link today and get $35 off your first year with BJ's. So all of this membership for just $20 for your first year. Murderandlove.com/BJ's. And trust me, I don't give you stuff that I don't use myself. I love BJ's and you're going to love them too. Now, back to the show. So officers took Alex to the hospital to fix his cuts, fix his burnt arm, and Jordan came with them. When she got to the hospital, though, because they got there separately, so when she got to the hospital, though, she walked in and, quote, walked him out of the hospital, despite the surgeon telling him that he needed to stay. The doctors told him he needed to stay. The police told him he needed to stay. And all it took was Jordan to walk in and walk him on out. A few days later, though, police were once again called to the property, and this time officers were not going to leave while he was still in the vicinity of Jordan. This time, Sergeant Finn took the call and went out himself. Quote, as soon as I saw him in the light of day, the state of him in terms of countless injuries all over his body, the fact that he had those horrible, dirty clothes on, he was pale, thin. I thought he was being abused. And looking at Jordan, he thought Jordan seemed very slight, well-spoken, very polite, to all intents and purposes, a very nice lady. Sergeant Finn sat down with Alex and forced him, persuaded him is a better word, to tell him what was really going on. Alex, as per usual, kept trying to say that he did this to himself, he did this to himself, he did this to himself. And finally, Sergeant Finn was able to get through his walls and get Alex to trust him. Alex told Sergeant Finn that Jordan had stabbed him again. He told the sergeant that Jordan had scalded him with the hot water and had attacked him with a glass bottle, a screwdriver, and a hammer. He said that she constantly denied him food and he was basically starving. He told him about the weapons that she used, which was the hammer, like I said, the screwdriver, the bread knife, the hairbrush. He told him about her taking his wallet away, forcing him to quit his job. And he said it had gotten to the point where she was attacking him every day. And that one time she even made him swallow an entire packet of sleeping pills. And he told him about the time where Jordan broke his tooth. Quote, I had no money. I didn't drive. So in the end, I just ripped the tooth out. Eesh. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't even. Oh my God. I guess he was already in so much pain. Oh, I can't even imagine he ripped his own tooth out. Quote, I'd be sleeping and she'd smack me in the head and I'd look in the mirror and I'd just be bleeding. I wasn't eating properly. She didn't let me. She made me sleep on the floor instead of the bed. I could feel that my body was starting to shut down. I didn't want my son to get hurt, so I was fighting to keep going because I didn't know what would happen if I was to leave. She poured boiling water over his arms so much that the skin had started peeling off of his arms and his back. Quote, she would wait up all night with a kettle of boiling water, and if it went cold, she would just wait and reboil it. So finally, Sergeant Finn had all he needed to arrest Jordan on suspicion of assault and grievous bodily harm. Now, there was actual body cam footage that showed her getting arrested and showed how bad Alex looked on that day. His clothes were bloodstained. He had bruises all over his body, and he was just a beaten man. He couldn't even make eye contact. Surprisingly, yet not so surprisingly, when they were taking Jordan away, Alex gave her a hug and a kiss goodbye, and then he himself was taken to the hospital. He was initially taken to Bedford Hospital's acute clinic unit, and then they had to transport him to the Adamsbrook Hospital. Doctors let him know that he was, quote, just 10 days away from death. In the way that he was right now, his physical state, he was going to die in just 10 days. Not only was he starving to death, but his burns had become infected. Doctors said he had lost 56 pounds, which is 4 stones. I don't know. I don't know that conversion. If somebody said I lost 1 stone, I have no idea what you're talking about. But my UK listeners, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So he had lost 4 stone, which for us over here in the US is 56 pounds. Just, oh my God, that's what, 9 months? In that time, he had lost 56 pounds. And in September of 2017, he was released from the hospital and he was finally able to see his family, his grandfather who he loved, and he got back with his children again. Jordan, on the other hand, was charged with 17 counts of wounding with intent, causing grievous bodily harm with intent, and controlling or corrosive behavior in an intimate relationship. On April 13th, 2018, she pled guilty and was given 2 7-year sentences to be served consecutively at Luton Crown Court. She was also given another 6 months for the controlling or coercive behavior. And because of this, the 6 months for that charge, she became the first female in the UK to be convicted of this charge ever. Now, I found this in my research, and I don't know how to say it in my own words, so I'm just going to say it in theirs. And in the show notes below, I will leave the link to where I got this from, so my reference. Quote, in June of 2018, after a referral under the unduly lenient sentence scheme, the Court of Appeal determined that while her sentence was undoubtedly very lenient, it was not unduly so, and she was spared an increase of her sentence. So they gave this woman who basically imprisoned a human being and then proceeded to physically, mentally, and emotionally abuse this human being for 9 months. She scalded him. How many times? Every single day she was doing something to him. They gave her 7.5 years. And then somebody said, maybe this is too lenient. And the court said, no. We agree. It's actually very lenient. We agree about that. But no, it's not unduly lenient. So we'll leave it as it is. Now tell me, lambs, if this was a man who did this to a woman. Just let's imagine this for a second. This was a man who kept a woman away from her family, who kept a woman with him at all times, made him quit his job, took away his money, took away his phone, broke his phone. Then every day this man would hit this woman with a brush, break his teeth or break her teeth, make her teeth loose in her mouth. Then it escalated to beating her with a hammer and pouring scalding hot water on her every day. And they came in and found this woman bloody, knifed up, well, cut up, skin hanging off her forearms and her back, and 56 pounds lighter. Now tell me, lambs, do you think this man would have gotten only, 7 years, so 14 years, 14 and a half years? Do you think he would have gotten 14 and a half years in prison, or they would have dug a hole under that jail and threw him under there? Which one do you think would have happened? And let's say he got 14 and a half years. Let's say that even happened. And then somebody said, I think that was lenient. Do you think the court would have said, nah, I mean, it's lenient, but what you gonna do? We'll let it. And it gets so much worse. So she didn't attend her hearing, but her lawyer said that she felt remorse. It was like, no, she's not here today, but she does feel remorseful for her actions. I mean, I don't know how we could tell she feels remorseful for her actions because she's not here. Now, she had 14 years, which was 2 7-year sentences served consecutively and an extra 6 months thrown in. She was out in 2022, the beginning of 2022, January 2022 to be exact. So she went in April of 2018 and she got out in January of 2022. So what, 3.5 years, if even that, out of 14 years? And the reason we know she got out in January of 2022 is because she got on social media and started sharing pictures of herself. Now, they said that she was released after serving half of her sentence, but half of her sentence wouldn't that have been one sentence at least, the 7 years? She didn't serve half of her sentence. She served substantially less than half of her sentence. But they said this is something that occurs automatically in the UK and in 90% of cases of imprisonment. So they let her out way early. So she did this with impunity. She did these horrendous acts to this man with impunity and got out of prison. And it gets worse. Believe it or not, it gets worse than this. So on her social media, when she started posting in 2022, like I said, she said that she was the victim. She was the one who was abused. And then she continuously shares links around stories of women in abusive relationships. She was the victim. There is no evidence in the history of evidence that he did anything to her. And from what I understood from her lawyers, she felt remorse. Remember? This is the remorse you let her out early for. And now her remorse is that she was the victim of abuse. And so I'm left to wonder, you gave her this lenient ass sentence. Was it because, what? She was a woman? She couldn't have possibly done all this stuff to a man? He's a big, strong man. He should be able to defend himself. Why did she get such a lenient sentence and then you even let her out way early? And if you really think about it, not only did she abuse this man, but she emotionally abused those kids, mentally abused them because they had to watch what was going on. And isn't that considered a form of abuse too? And all you did was gave her a slap on the wrist? It also came out that in February 2019, Jordan's Facebook account was still posting. So somebody was posting on her Facebook account for her while she was in prison. And the posts that were being posted on her account were about being the victim of abuse. So this is where that rhetoric started before she even got out of prison, saying that she was the victim of domestic abuse. So when she got out, it says, this is what it said, quote, Worth was given a restraining order for an indefinite period. So I'm not understanding. Was she given a restraining order or was it put on her to stay away from him? So this is what I'm not understanding. I'm wondering if it's like a UK form of grammar that it says Worth was given a restraining order instead of it was put on her. So I don't know if she got a restraining order against him because what the blah, or if a restraining order was put on her. So that I don't understand that sentence. And then in April of 2023, Jordan was engaged to some guy named Adam Steff. Now, it then went on to report that friends and family warned the frick out of him about dating her, who was a convicted domestic abuser. One friend even sent him the BBC documentary of Alex telling everybody the story and then his friend told him not to date the, quote, psychopath. But Adam said, bump all that. She's gorgeous. She's hot. Look at how hot she is. And I want to be with her and we're good together and whatever. And he stayed with her. And he also posts pictures online with him and Jordan being all happy and everything like that. And after a hearing on July 4th, 2023, the parole board decided she's good, and they released her early from her sentence because they said she was no longer a risk to the public. So literally nothing happened to her. Quote, after considering the circumstances of her offending and time on license, the progress made while in custody and the evidence presented at the hearing, the panel was satisfied and imprisonment was no longer necessary for the protection of the public. So all of that and nothing happened to her. Now, this is where I think I'm going to lose some listeners, which it is what it is. If you don't want to listen to me anymore because of this, it is what it is. But I've seen online that some people don't ever believe that men can be abused, which clearly, obviously, I don't agree with that. Anybody can be abused. You can be mentally, physically, emotionally abused. And abuse is wrong, whether it's you're doing it to a man, you're doing it to a woman. No, absolutely not. And I'm going to speak out against it, period, point blank. So, if you don't agree with that, then I guess this podcast isn't for you. And I believe those who abuse needs to be punished for said abuse. And this woman was not punished for said abuse. She is out living her life, getting engaged, taking pictures, claiming that she's the victim. And this guy is living with these scars, both physical scars, emotional scars, and mental scars. And hopefully, hopefully he's gotten counseling for this. And hopefully the children don't even remember this. So there's 3 people who are living with the scars, whether it's literal scars, like physical scars, or metaphoric scars. But they're living with scars of what she did. And she's just out living life to the fullest, getting her sentences reduced and getting it taken away and just all of this stuff. Engaged to a guy who refuses to believe, or, even if he does believe, he thinks she's changed everything. Just A-okay for her. Now imagine if it was a man. Imagine if the shoe were on the other foot. This guy would have been getting his butt beat in jail still. They would have never let him out early. They would have given him even a worse sentence. They would have called him the scum of the earth and everything like that. Everyone would have been just, even if he had gotten out of prison, the world would have shunned him. Shunned him. Alex, on the other hand, this is what he said. Quote, when the police found me, I was told I was 10 days away from death. I was in love with Jordan, and it took me a long time to have the courage to say she was abusing me. The day that she went to prison, I felt so free. It was a massive relief. I remember just saying, I can actually look over my shoulder now for the first time in 5 years without worrying. Now that I'm free of the relationship, I'm beginning to understand abuse better, and I hope that I can help others understand it too. The memories will never leave me, but I'm learning how to cope. I have so much support from my family and friends, and I'm building a future for me and my kids. Currently, Alex is coaching a football team, which I think is soccer in the U.S., sponsored by a domestic abuse charity. He has since become an ambassador and spokesman for domestic abuse against men and is part of the Mankind Initiative and talks to professionals to help them spot the signs of abuse. And it's good to note, well, I don't want to say good. It's interesting to note that men make up more than 1/3 of the victims of domestic abuse in England and Wales each year. And to find out more about the Mankind Initiative or to help male victims of domestic abuse, go to mankind.org.uk. Or if you are a victim, a male victim, this case is just about male victims. If you are a male victim of domestic abuse, please do not hesitate to speak out. I know a lot of men are scared to speak out. And even when they speak out, usually people don't believe them. Usually people laugh at them. Whether it's men have gotten raped. And do you know they'll tell the police or they'll tell somebody in power and this person will laugh at them like, how is that a bad thing? Like, they won't be taken seriously. A man goes and says he's being abused by his woman and people laugh at him like, you're bigger than her. Just stop her. A lot of men are not listened to when they're saying they've been raped, when they're saying they've been abused or they are being abused. It's really hard to find help for men. So if you are a man and a victim of domestic abuse, please seek help. A good place to go is this mankind.org.uk for our UK listeners. Or in the US, you can call 1-888-7-HELP-LINE. That's 1-888-743-5754. 1-888-743-5754. Or visit dahmw.org. And that is the domestic abuse case, the horrible, horrible, so bad case of Alex Skeel. What did you think about this episode? I know there are some people out there who are like, well, women get beaten every day. And I understand that, but we need to call light to every facet of domestic abuse, not just women, men, and children. Everybody. Domestic abuse has got to stop. I have brothers. And so I'm worried about domestic abuse with them. Who is going to believe them? Well, I'll believe them. But I'm saying outside of me and my family, who would believe them in a domestic abuse incident? If they came and said, the person I'm with is beating on me, who would believe them? Most men are scared to go and get help for domestic abuse because most of the time they are ridiculed. It is a huge problem. I would love to hear from you about this case. In my poll question for this week, I want you to be honest with me. Would you believe a man if he told you he was being physically abused by his girlfriend or his wife at home? Be honest. The polls are anonymous anyway, so just go ahead and be honest with yourself and be honest with me and let me know if you would believe a man if he said he was being physically abused at home. And I hate to do this complete segue because this was just a horrible case, but let's kind of start working our mental health back up from the low. Let's go back up and talk about your poll and your comments from last week's full episode. So last week, the episode was the murder of Elizabeth Sennett. And just so you know, I do like reading your comments out on air. It is part of my process now to help my mental health go from the lowest low, picking me back up. So I do appreciate your comments. It has definitely become part of my process in decompressing after I have to record these horrendous episodes. So thank you so much for all of you who write in. Thank you so much for all of you who answer my poll questions. And if you haven't done so yet, please send me a comment. Please answer the poll question. Like I said, it does help me greatly to decompress after each episode. So like I was saying, last week's episode was the murder of Elizabeth Sennett. And my question was, do you feel sympathy for Kenneth? And 100% of y'all said no, you felt no sympathy for Kenneth. Hazel said, I really like it that you give advice on your podcast to look for other options to solve their problems other than murder, like confess your mistakes and stop making the mistake, divorce your wife, stop spending, make payment plans. Sometimes people sink so deep into their problems that they can't think straight. If more podcasters can remind people of alternatives, I think it would be very useful. Thank you so much, Hazel, for that comment. Yeah, I do try to put out some options out there. Let's try something else other than murder, obviously. So thank you so much, Hazel. Luna Cat said, loved it. Love you too. I know you're talking about the episode, but love you too, Luna Cat. Okay, TL. We all know who TL is by now. I'm not even going to try it because I'm probably going to fall into another laughing fit. So we're just going to say TL. TL, I love you. You know I love you. TL said, I don't agree with trying experimental drugs on people, but I don't feel bad for him. That's exactly what I thought, TL. TL goes on to say, I like that my name tickled you. You made me laugh. I like that you're a good sport. I'm really happy that you were not offended by me laughing. And TL says the T part of her name means, quote, forever grateful to God. Last name is made up. Okay, got you. I'm going to continue calling you TL because I'm still 5 and I cannot get through your name without laughing. One day I will. I'm going to continuously say it to myself so that the next time you leave a comment, I can't promise the next time. One time when you leave a comment, I'll be able to say your name, but by then I might be used to calling you TL. But I do love your name and I do love that you're a good sport and I do love that you're a lamb and you're a supporter. Thank you so much, TL. Jaholi Cakes 24 said, love your voice and telling. Thank you, Jaholi Cakes. My brother says my voice is annoying and he laughs at my tellings. And for the episode of the case of Sheila LaBar, Alexandra Doon says the police should have been held accountable for being so lackadaisical in all aspects of this case. I mean, yeah, a lot of people should have been held accountable. That was freaking crazy. That's all I can say. A lot of people should have been held accountable. And Christina Bobo went back all the way to season 3 and listened to our last full episode there. Remember the interview with Hera McLeod? So she just listened to it and she said, quote, just finished the interview with Hera McLeod and whew, I'm in tears. The system failed her, Prince, the eldest son, his mom, Joaquim's mom, and only God knows who else destroyed by Joaquim. I don't believe in the death penalty because I prefer the perps to suffer in prison and end in misery. But Joaquim, and then she has this skull bones, cross and skull bones. Death for sure. Heavy story aside, it was an amazing interview which shed light on how fudged up the system really is. Hera is a hero using her experience to help others. The strength in her voice, I don't know how she managed. Won $150,000 plus and she lost her child. That judge, grr. So much of this interview had me ready to mollywop the computer. Can't wait to get the book. Also, Kai, you asked all the right questions. You stay on point for real. Lastly, so glad Hera is still in touch with the eldest son because he lost his mother. She lost her son. They're bonded through trauma, but not in an unhealthy way. Neither of them will ever be the same, but at least they will have each other. I want to listen to part 2, but I think I'm going to watch some Tubi to decompress for a little. Yeah, and as I told you in our After the Pod group on Facebook, I had to decompress after that too, and I felt really guilty about it. If y'all want to see more of our conversation and you want to have conversations after the show, head on over to our Facebook group, which is basically the after show after the pod. If you look down in the show notes below, the link for our Facebook group, our private Facebook group is down there. So that's another way to get in contact with the Lamb community. So just join our private Facebook group and it's free. And that's it for your comments. Thank you everybody for that. I was really feeling down at the end of this episode and you really did pick me up with your comments. So thank you so much. If you have a comment to leave on this episode, go ahead and leave it. I want to hear what you have to say. If you are a man and you have something to say on this episode, I definitely want to hear what you have to say. If you are a woman, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear everybody's views on this episode. So don't hesitate. No matter what platform you're on, go ahead and leave me a comment, or you can head on over to our After the Pod group. Our link is in the show notes below, and we can carry on the conversation over there. Head on over and take our poll, which the question is, do you think if a man told you that he was being physically abused at home, would you believe him? And before you go, last order of business in the Lamb Club is don't forget to go ahead and share this episode. This is a completely free and easy way to help me out. Just go ahead and whatever platform you're on, click on that share link and share it on your social media platform and let your friends and your family know to listen to Love and Murder. And as always, I end each episode by reminding you that it's, say it with me now, lambs, let me hear it, let me hear it. All love and no murder, y'all. I love y'all. Bye. Hey, after the episode, Kai here. before you go, one more ask of you. Don't forget to leave me a 5-star review. It's very, very easy and it's very, very helpful. All you have to do is hit 5 stars on whatever platform you're on. And if it asks for something to say, just say, "We love lamb." Lam. Thank you. Bye.